Small on numbers, but always big on pride of where we've come from and the odds we've defied. You'll never keep a lying down. We're the famous Livingston, the pride of our town.
Livingston Football Club was formed in 1995 after Edinburgh-based Meadowbank Thistle were renamed and relocated to West Lothian. It's safe to say that the club's 25-year existence has been far from dull. With promotions, relegations and numerous threats of extinction, the journey has certainly been a rollercoaster for the Lions. This documentary tells the true underdog story of Livingston Football Club.
I saw real potential moving to West Lothian. Real potential in it because there was no other team in West Lothian at the time. And I thought, wow, if I got my head around this, get out to the kids, get to the schools, it could be something special, eh?
At the time, Bill Hunter, they were struggling, the fan base was dwindling, and it was a case of doing something new. And you look at Livingston as a city or a town, one of the new towns built after the Second World War. It didn't have its own football club, so it seemed the right idea. Fairly or unfairly, Livingston were branded as a sort of franchise because it was rare for clubs to kind of move and relocate. I think the idea of going into a new town, getting that fan base, I think is still difficult. And even now it's still difficult because you will have guys, certainly in West Lothian, where there's a lot of Hibs fans, Hearts fans, and also Rangers and Celtic fans.
Remarkably, Livingston rose from the bottom tier of Scottish football to the Premier League in just 6 seasons. In their debut season in the top flight, the Lions came third, securing European football.
Well, for me, it was a great journey. Football's a journey from A to B, from the bottom to the top, and Livingston being on that journey. The whole thing, for me, third division, second, first, Premier, just phenomenal.
When the new club were formed, in terms of the journey they went on, they had a new lease of life. They were attracting players that maybe they wouldn't have been able to attract in Meadowbank, that's for sure. And you look at it, yeah, Gretna had consecutive promotions. Rangers spent 2 years in the Championship but got up. But 3 promotions in 6 years is very good. It was a real story, and that's the thing. It was a story. Being in the media now, you can see why that became a story. They signed experienced players, they brought some players through, and going on that journey, finally getting to the Premiership, getting that promotion in 2001. That was a big thing at the time.
For a team like Livingston, it was unbelievable, eh? Think of many teams in Scottish football have tried to get to that top league. They couldn't do it, eh?
Look at the number of established clubs that will try for years and years and never make it. So for Livy to have done it on a couple of occasions in that time's incredible. And then to go and be so competitive when they got there, being a small club in an area where you're struggling to get fans and you're competing with Hearts and Hibs and competing with Celtic and Rangers. So by any standards, that would be a success. But to do it against that backdrop it's incredible.
I don't think there are many clubs that could come from the Championship to go into the Premiership, to competing for third place with the likes of Hibs and Aberdeen. We started off the season very strongly, beating Hearts, drawing away at Rangers at Ibrox, which I think gave a lot of belief to the team, drawing at home to Celtic, which gave massive belief to the team. And then suddenly after that, I think the guys kind of looked around and thought, do you know what, we're going to be all right. We're going to be okay this season. We can compete with the big guns. In my whole career, it was the most enjoyable season I ever had because, I won't lie, I didn't think that Livingston would finish third at the start of the season. I just wanted us to be competitive. But I knew very quickly that we could do much better than that. And that was the whole point, was kind of trying to say to the guys, there's a lot of people that have suggested that we're going to get relegated. So we'll use that as motivation.
Celtic, Rangers, and the Livy Lions, yay, third top. Brilliant, man. It was a great feeling. If you're a manager or you're a player, that's like winning the league, eh?
Livingston hasn't had European football since, so you kind of know what a landmark event it was in the club's history.
See, we played Vaduz, right? We played Vaduz, we led them out in the national. All the players are lining up in a row, then the national anthem comes on. I looked along the line and I said to myself, how am me here? Why me? This is the greatest achievement in my life with Livingston, third top in Europe.
What followed was just as incredible. On the 14th of March 2004, the little West Lothian club had the first piece of silverware. Against all odds, and with the club under serious financial threat, Davy Hayes Livingston defeated Hibs to lift the Scottish League Cup.
I think 1995 to 2004 to win that cup final is unbelievable, really, and probably won't ever be done again.
I think one of the best achievements in Scottish football, and Hibs have always been a big spending club, so much talent coming through there, and it's for me the perfect underdog story.
For a team like Livingston Football Club, 10-year-old, to win the League Cup at your national stadium, a national trophy, that is phenomenal.
The disrespect and the ignorance towards Livingston for that final was quite frightening. And it was quite frightening because it came from Hibs fans, but it also came from the media in general.
I remember kind of speaking to a mate of mine who was a Hibs fan, and he was kind of joking, you lot shouldn't even turn up, you've got no chance. And I laughed and I said, you actually think you're going to win, don't you? You actually think you're going to win. I said, you won't win.
I think all the pressure was on Hibs. They had the big fans there. They had 30,000 supporters. We had maybe about 9 or something like that, I think it was.
I think because Hibernian were the bigger team, they ended up taking 38,000 to the cup final. They had beaten the Old Firm on the way in to the final. That was probably the way that people thought it was all down to Hibs. But that wasn't the case, and maybe that went against Hibs. Maybe that went for Livingston. They could play up that underdog tag because people had just written them off.
The underdog is certainly a very strong narrative. Sport and football is also about narratives. It's about stories. It's about storytelling, and there is something intrinsic about the kind of the underdog, the David and Goliath, and that's a very, very strong narrative in our societies.
There was a ball floated in from the right-hand side from Lee Makel, which drifted to the far side. Burton was very composed and he kind of took his time, took a touch, lifted his head. Derek Lilly just pulled off his man and Burton just kind of rolled it across the box for a side foot from kind of 6 yards out. And, that was us with our noses in front. And I remember kind of saying to the guys when we scored, got to kick on, play on the front foot, got to go for the second. And we didn't have to wait very long. When Jamie went through, I remember thinking they'll not catch him because he's quick. Took a lovely first touch and then just drew the keeper and slotted it down the side. And I have to be honest, at that stage, I kind of thought, they're never going to be able to score 2 goals against us.
It was brilliant. I love watching the celebrations of the goals. It's great because you see it just so happened that they were at the right end for them to run over the Livingston fans and enjoy the emotion and probably of scoring a cup final, and ultimately when that second goal goes in, we knew they're not going to come back after that. No chance.
Normally, if you're in a cup final, you expect to be playing against the likes of Celtic or Rangers, and we weren't. And for Livingston, who don't get to cup finals every year, it was a great achievement. It was almost a case of we'd won this just in time because we kind of knew what was coming. We're coming out of administration. We knew there would be changes. You knew that a club never comes out of administration in a strong position. It just kind of recovers. So I think we won that trophy in the nick of time because, from a personal point of view, I kind of knew what was coming. I knew that there was going to be a downturn.
That is Livingston absolutely hitting the map in Scottish football. The problem was that was really the beginning of the end of that first new era of the new club. They got the cup. You can never take it away from them, but I think the problems are to come thereafter.
After the massively successful first decade, things went pear-shaped for Livingston. In 2006, they were relegated from the Premier League, and by 2009, the club was in administration for the second time.
Things weren't quite right, and there always seemed to be issues with even the smallest wee thing. So that was kind of the signs and the alarm bells.
It was quite worrying. Obviously a young boy, so then you're thinking, like, where do I go next? What's next? Will I still be playing football? Am I going to have to look for a different career? To be honest, it was a lot of stuff going through my head, and there's so much uncertainty. I actually didn't know what lay ahead.
People's wages and things weren't paid, and guys older guys in the team that had kids, and that's obviously an added responsibility for them. And that wasn't nice to see. It was it's a worrying time for anybody.
It was horrendous. Not being paid on time, worrying about bills, worrying about whether you're going to be able to pay your mortgage. You know, players come to you saying they've no money to buy food, and you know, at that time, I don't think the owners actually cared.
To be demoted by a couple of divisions was kind of unprecedented at the time, and that really, you thought, well, they need to put a bond up to make sure that the league are going to allow them to continue playing.
For 1 minute, you were a championship club. I would say an established championship club that always wanted to be challenging to get back to the Premier League, to in the next minute be demoted to the lowest level of the leagues was very difficult to explain to you how it felt. Very, very difficult, because it was just a wee bit surreal.
You probably start to fear at that point that that's Livy sort of reverting to where they should be ultimately, and you think, well, okay, yeah, third place, Europe, Sturm Graz Cup final, but was that just a flash in the pan? Is this us back at where we bob along? To go through that sort of turmoil, and then come back from it, you know, again, other clubs have shown that it's not easy to do that.
The way that the club has come back from that setback has been a really, really good story.
Under Gary Boland, Livingston won back-to-back promotions and returned to the second tier. 5 seasons in that league followed. Despite a Challenge Cup trophy and a great escape from relegation along the way, the club looked a million miles away from returning to the top flight, especially when in 2016 they were relegated to League One via the playoffs by Stranraer. As seems to be the case with Livingston though, the next chapter of this club's story was phenomenal.
I personally believe, in my own opinion, it was the best thing that ever happened to Livingston Football Club.
At that point when we get relegated, there was chat about the club possibly not staying full time.
We managed to get the board to keep us full time. I think all the coaching staff all took big pay cuts to allow that to happen. The players' wages weren't great anyway. That season, I think it's 2016-2017, that was the season we went on to win League One. We then got into the Championship, where again we were probably financially we were probably one of the lowest clubs. We were a full-time team with a part-time budget.
Obviously, the aim of Livingston when we went to League One and the Championship was always going to be, we had to stay in the league. But I think as the season went on, and as I says, it comes again for how tight a group we were, that we knew that we could do what looked at that time the impossible.
The longer the season went on, the better the position we were ending up in, and then it was coming sort of towards the end of the campaign, and we're like, right, let's make sure we end up in those playoff positions.
Some of us kept laughing and joking about it, because we actually just kind of kept seeming to winning and stuff like that. I'm like, what's going on here? We're pushing.
I don't think they really took it serious for challenging to go to the playoffs and even go up. I think they just thought, they're having a good season, but it'll just kind of flutter out and they'll just finish mid-table sort of thing. So I think from our point of view, it was good in a sense, because no one was really worrying about us.
When you think of the drama of the playoffs, it's incredible. It's absolutely amazing. That's an incredible story, and you don't get that often.
I honestly think some teams were beat before they'd even came to play us. And likewise, when we went away from home, we were just there to do our job. It was no matter how that job get done, it was just go out and get it done. And that's what we really bought into that. But like you say, we were the underdogs, so we kind of had that bit of freedom as well.
I do believe we were probably the underdogs, but I don't think anybody within the dressing room in the building believed that. We had that tag, but I think on our day we knew we could go out and beat anyone.
No one expected us to go and get promotion that year. Personally, I like it. It gives you that sort of hunger to go and prove everyone wrong. And it showed in the playoffs.
Livingston is not the only club that can play the underdog card, but I just feel like it fits the club really well. And, that kind of ability to be able to turn around and say, we're not going to be a pushover against anyone is massively important.
There's a whole host of kind of variables that have to kind of slot into play to allow the underdog to have its day, as it were. But in one sense, that is the kind of one of the intrinsic appeals of sport is always around that possibility of it happening. And if you were to kind of take that out of sport, and you were to be assured that every time Livingston played a club that has more financial clout than it would lose, then frankly, the sport would be over.
I think there is a lot to be said about the underdog tag and about writing Livy off. Write off Livingston at your peril.
I think it was only natural that we were underdogs, just because of where they were coming from and where we had came from, being in League One the year before that, and then finding ourselves in the playoffs.
We loved the underdogs card. We loved it because every game we went into, we felt as if we had to prove something. And that's a great thing to have in your corner, that you feel like you need to prove yourself in every game. That playoff game for me it's one that's going to be remembered in my career forever.
Even to this day, it's still one of my fondest memories in a football park. Just like you said, going into the game underdogs, Dundee United, a huge club. No one expects us to get a result there, and obviously the way we done it, going back to win 3-2, it was unbelievable.
The feeling that I had from that night, everybody knows Dundee United are a massive club, playing at Tannadice under the lights. It was on BT Sport. It was the equaliser, and just seeing, I think even seeing from my reaction when I scored, when I look back and I watch the videos, it still gives me goosebumps. So on a personal level, that's definitely up there. It's a goal that I'm proud of.
I think what kind of epitomised us as a team was the third goal, when Shawnee Byrne tracks down 3 players by himself, just keeps chasing. Like, he's got no right to ever win the ball in that situation. It's crazy. Like, I don't think that goal spoke about enough, because he still has to beat a defender and beat the goalie. And to be fair, the wee nutmeg and then the wee dink, it's incredible scenes. Incredible. And then the celebrations for there, with the fans going mental, I think that just kind of showed what we were all about that season.
The scenes obviously behind the goal when Pitt scored and that, and celebrating with the fans, it's just stuff that you have to do as a footballer. And I think especially after that game, it just gave us such a confidence boost to know that we could go on and finish off the job.
In the Partick Thistle game, I think we believed that nothing was going to stop us by that point.
I think before the game, everyone just looked at each other and were like we had came such a long way. Obviously, we never wanted to fall at the last hurdle.
It wasn't until Keegan Jacobs scored that early goal in the second half at Firhill that I actually remember turning around, looking at Hoppy, and the two were smiling at one another, saying, "This might happen."
I feel like when he scored that game, you really feel like this is it. We're doing it.
But the ball's broke to Sean Byrne at the edge of the box, and he's managed to get a turn and lay me just on the edge of the box. Luckily for me, it's found the gap and found the side netting.
It's obviously we've still got a long time to go to hang on, but I think at that point all the boys start putting the confidence. There's obviously nerves start to kick in as you get closer, but I think when Keeg scored, I think most of the boys on that pitch knew that we had done it, and we just had to kind of do what we'd done all season and just finish it off.
None of us, even sitting with 15 minutes to go in the Partick Thistle second leg, none of us were expecting that was going to happen. It was actually quite terrifying, if I'm honest, because we just had no plans to be in the Premier League.
I know it was a promotion through playoffs and not actually winning the league, but that feeling of having to fight for the promotion through a playoff was unreal, and probably it's honestly a feeling I don't even know how to explain. It was unreal.
I think it will always be for the rest of my career one of my best memories playing football, going back-to-back promotions, and obviously captaining the club at such a young age. Obviously it's something I never ever thought I'd do.
To do it from an underdog stance makes it that bit more special, but maybe that suits clubs like Livingston. You kind of want to be that kind of siege mentality, that underdog. I think that allows you to surprise people and perform at your best at times.
Livingston were massive underdogs in those playoffs, but under David Hopkin and David Martindale, they did the impossible. After a 12-year absence, the Lions were back in the top flight. Just like in those playoffs, the club were doubted again and tipped for an immediate return to the Championship. But I guess some people didn't learn their lesson. You never write Livingston off.
I think our turnover for that season that we were promoted was about 1.2 million, something like that. So again, You know, that's not the kind of money. If we got into the Premiership, we knew we had to have electronic ticketing. We knew we had to look at opening the 2 stands that had been derelict. What the hell? What do we need to do? How are we going to do this? It was, you know, it was part kind of, you were part wowed by it and then part terrified, as I said before, by the sheer volume of work that needed done, because we didn't have any money.
We've already built a philosophy on being an underdog. So for them going up into another league, we were massive underdogs again.
The thing about Livingston, since they've come to the Premier League, is that a wee bit like Hamilton, everybody tips them to be down the bottom every year. And I think that if you come and play for Livingston, you've got to accept that there's people going to question you and going to doubt you. And I think that gives people something to fight against.
I would think any manager would be using that many times throughout a season. We're the underdogs. Nobody thinks we should be in this league. Nobody enjoys coming to this ground. Let's show these guys what we can do. Let's make a point.
I don't think you want to go through life always trying to prove people wrong, but it's a good stick to beat yourself with sometimes to get you fired up. I think the underdog tag certainly helped as well. That no one liked us. Well, we're written off. We're going to get relegated. Don't deserve to be in the league. All that nonsense. And it does add fuel to your fire. It's always good to stick 2 fingers up sometimes and say, "I would do." And we had that in abundance in the whole time that we were there.
They're always going to be underdogs. People just look at Livingston like a kind of small town club, and all the other teams are just going to brush them aside. But it doesn't happen. Even when I was there when we first went up, like you said, well, we just came back to back promotions. And nobody gives you a chance whatsoever. So they just think, "Oh, Livingston going straight back down."
Majority of the games we went into that first year, we were the underdog, but I think rightly so as well, with where we had came from. I think any team that comes up for the Championship are always going to be the underdogs. But we just kind of took it in our stride, basically.
When we first went up, there's a lot of stuff. Obviously, boys read things and they listen to news, etc. and stuff like that. And everyone says, like, people are doing their predictions for the season. I thought Livingston will definitely be in the bottom 2. And just as a personal note, and everyone together, you just want to prove all these people wrong.
If you listen to like the pundits and that, like every year they would have us going down and they would have us no really having a chance. So if we listened to them, then we probably wouldn't have, but we didn't. We knew what we had. We knew what we could do.
There was a complacency when teams played against Livingston, and then after 5-10 minutes they knew that they were in a game. They will go from like winning League One to getting promoted for the Championship by finishing second, and then like first 10-14 games I think we kind of ran riot a wee bit in the Premier League as well. Could I said that was going to happen? No, I couldn't have said that ever, but I was delighted to be there for 2 out of 3 sort of main years when it did happen.
After a 9th place finish in their first season back in the Premiership, the following season, Livingston were tipped for relegation again. As always though, they defied the odds, finishing 5th in the league with a memorable victory over Celtic along the way.
I mean, that was the underdog mentality that we were going in there with nothing to lose, really. Celtic were the ones to lose. If they lost against us, it was their loss. Obviously, big Matty Sarkic was in goals. And he put a good ball over the top, and I just kind of made a little run and got him behind. And it wasn't that I really thought about it, to be honest. I just thought, just kind of dink it over him. When it went in, I was over the moon, and then went and celebrated in front of the corner flag. And I don't know why, but I ended up knee sliding on the Astro, and it wasn't a good idea. But it was just, yeah, it was an amazing goal, and I'll always remember it.
Getting tipped for relegation and you finish in the top 6, I don't think the club gets accolades it should get for that achievement. I think it's an absolutely huge achievement.
Obviously, when I was there, I think we got tipped to come last in the league, I'm pretty sure. And we done really well. And even when we beat Celtic and we had great runs, people were still putting us down and they still didn't believe. But we use that as fire. We use that to prove people wrong.
I think it's a phenomenal feat. I really do. It baffles me how we managed to do it. But I know it was just sheer hard work and guts and determination, and the players and the staff all pulling in the right direction because they wanted to get the best of everything they could get. The magnitude of it is surreal. It really is, because the the budget that we had is so insignificant compared to the majority of them teams in that league. But it's amazing what you can do with a wee bit of spirit, a wee bit of belief, and a lot of hard work.
It was November 2020. I took over the job on an interim basis, and we went on to go on a 14-game unbeaten run with 10 clean sheets, and we managed to take the club to a National Cup final.
I think even some of the players within the current side are reflective of the actual story of the club. You know, they've had some very, very low moments where it could have been over, but they've shown remarkable self-belief, spirit to get to the point they're at now and achieve, for a club of that size or for players of that level, remarkable things.
It's amazing how they've managed to really get back up into the top league, stay there, and actually look as if teams like Rangers and Celtic don't want to go to Livingston. All credit to the guys at the club for getting them back to where at this time that's where they belong, in the top six.
Not only have Livingston been successful on the domestic stage over the last few seasons, but they've played a small part in Scotland's success on the international stage. As underdogs, away to Serbia, the national team qualified for their first major tournament in 23 years. Livy had a helping hand in making that happen.
Scotland's story's well told. 1998, last time the men's team got there, Lyndon Dykes and Declan Gallagher played like a massive role in getting there.
When people write you off and don't expect you to win games, that's when you kind of prove them wrong, or you just get on with it. And even if they've got that player or this player, I don't really bother, to be honest. So when I went into Scotland camp, that's what I was kind of like.
There's no given right to win any international game, and I just think being an underdog will always help Scotland, and Scotland should embrace that. They should never want to put themselves as favourites. They should want to stay as that underdog, and then it makes that achievement even more sweeter.
We were the underdogs, but at the end of the night, we made it to the Euros, and it was an amazing achievement for everyone involved, and myself and the whole nation.
So for those guys to play that part speaks volumes, and then not forgetting the guys that put in such a shift for Scotland in the years that we didn't get there. You know, when Lee Griffiths scores these free kicks at Hampden against England, and when Robert Snodgrass scores many times, many kind of important goals, and Livy should be really proud of their part in all of that.
Everyone's played their part over the last 25 years. It's been an inspiring, uplifting underdog story. It's clear to see the effect Livingston Football Club has had on those who have been part of the journey.
I loved it. It was a great time in my life. It gave me a great opportunity. It gave me a chance, and I loved walking out the tunnel. I loved walking down that tunnel match day. It was a great part of my life and my family's life.
The club means a lot to me. From such a young age, like, people know that I've played with Livingston my full career, but I've been there since I was 13, 14 years old. So they've been a massive part of my life.
I don't want to sound like too emotional here, but it gave me the chance to come back, play full-time football. And now Livingston, for me, is giving me the chance to kind of, I'll say it, like, just to kind of buy my first property for my family, because obviously I've got the wee man coming, so it probably wouldn't be possible if that wasn't for Livingston, for the opportunities that they've given me over the course of the last few years.
It's a club that's always really close to my heart. I think I've got a lot to owe Livingston and the people there, and the staff and the players. I think they kind of carved out my career, obviously, when I was a young boy and I first signed there, and the way my careers went. No, I've definitely got a lot to owe to them.
The club means everything to me. I think that for what a lot of the players done, I think you can see that the Livingston fans still have a love for us, and we've still got a love for the club.
Not one day it doesn't go by that I don't think about the club or what we achieved, and players, the people I still talk to, the staff, even some of the players and the past players. I'll always linger long in my heart. The highest praise I can give the club is the effect it's had on me.
The people that have been there, I couldn't fault any of them, and Davey to the kit man Cheb, to the kitchen staff Mo, everyone helped me and helped my family as well.
Livingston means so much to me. It's ultimately the club that gave me everything I've got, really. I'm so happy that I went to Livingston in League One to allow myself to have that connection, that relationship. And honestly, I'm so thankful for the opportunity that was given.
My time at Livingston's been nothing short of a whirlwind, I'll put it that way. Aye.
I think Livingston's a one-off. It's been a club that's against all odds has got to where it's got to, and it would be great to keep it there.
This club nearly went out of business, on more than one occasion. So, I suppose you'd probably say being a Livingston fan is never dull. You don't tend to kind of do mid-table or mediocrity very often. And I think that it's been a massive roller coaster for people who follow Livingston Football Club.
I just think it's a club with personality, a club with heart, and the great thing about sport is you go there and you don't know what to expect.
Livingston's a remarkable story because Scottish football is littered with clubs that that kind of aspire and becomes relatively successful for a short period of time and then completely disappear and nosedive. So that when you look at the trajectory of Livingston, as you mentioned, the kind of roller coaster up and down, the fact that they come back again, and not just come back, but come back and be successful is quite something.
I would imagine that sometimes it's been difficult, sometimes it's been unsettling because you don't know what the future of the club's going to be. But I'm sure for Livingston fans, one thing they can't say is it's not been boring. It's been a journey, it's been a roller coaster, and that is why I think they're enjoying the good times when they're getting them, because you just never know what happens after that.
I remember actually mentioning it on the show on Super Scoreboard that to get to where Livy are at now is arguably the comeback story of Scottish football, and come back from all the turmoil and then all the way back up. That's got to be one of the fairy tale stories of Scottish football in our generation anyway.
You'd like to think now, after 2 or 3 seasons and establish yourself in the Premier League and, like I said, back-to-back top 6 finishes, people might eventually stop just writing Livingston off and saying they're going to get relegated every year and realise that they're in the Premiership and they're there to stay.
Over the last 25 years or so, it's been different. There's no doubt about that. It's been controversial. There's no doubt about that. But I'm sure deep down, people have enjoyed it on the whole.
Small on numbers,